Tarofa, my name's Nigel Vagana. I'm 38. I was born in New Zealand. I've got Samoan heritage. Both mum and dad are from Samoa. And I work right now in the NRL as the Education and Welfare Manager.
So take us back down memory lane. How did you get your start in footy?
I was about 7 years old. Mum was chasing me out of the house one day, or around the house. I ran out the backyard, and at the backyard of the place we stayed in New Zealand and Auckland was a park. So I thought I'd go down there and cool off, or let Mum cool off. And some of my mates were just playing down there. It was a weekday, so they had training. They had league training. So I thought if I jump in with them for a little while, Mum should be sweet by the time we finish. And it happened to be a league team, so I just started playing league, and I guess from when I was 7 years old, kicked it up.
What are some of the highlights of your career?
Some of my strongest memories maybe is I made my debut when I was playing for the Warriors out at Campbelltown, and I remember we were playing West, and it was Easter, and I think it was the Easter Friday, and it might have been the Thursday night actually, and they used to have Thursday night games, and I was on the bench. I remember my cousin Joe playing as well, so me and Joe were both on the bench, and I remember feeling something on my back, and I turned around, these little kids are throwing Easter eggs at me. I'm thinking, far out, man, I haven't even got on the field yet, and they hate me, and they're only sort of 7, 8 years old, but it was just the passion of rugby league that I remember, making my debut or playing for the Kiwis. Was always pretty memorable, and putting on the Samoa jersey for the first time was pretty special as well.
What were some of the struggles you faced as a young Pacific player?
As a young player, I was pretty lucky, I thought, because I started at the Warriors, and we had a lot of Islanders at the Warriors, so it didn't feel too out of place being an Islander at the club. It was probably the other way around over there. But I know over here in Australia it was a bit different at the time. I remember we used to play when we played Canberra or the Dragons or the Dogs. That had maybe 2 or 3 players in their team, and a lot of them would always come over to us afterwards and say how lucky we were because there was a lot of other Islanders that could relate. So we felt pretty special. So for me, I was actually pretty lucky, I thought, and didn't go through as much of the challenges that a lot of the boys do over here.
When and why did you decide to step away from the game?
It's sort of like I finished playing 3 years ago or 4 years ago, and for me it was I didn't plan it this way, but it happened that every time I came off contract with the club, I left, and it was just something that I think when I look back on it, when I was negotiating contracts and that sort of stuff, it always came to doing what was best for my football or my family, and it worked out that me leaving or me moving on to a different club was always going to be the best for my family. So I ended up leaving, and when I finished at South Sydney. At the Bunnies a few years ago, I got some opportunities to keep going overseas, go play some rugby, and the NRL gave me a call and sort of said, "Oh, listen, if you're not sure if you want to keep going, if you're thinking about finishing up, no pressure, but we might have a job for you."
So now you work with the NRL as an Education and Welfare Officer. How did you move from being an athlete into your current role?
Well, I studied when I was playing. When they called up. And said, we might have a role for you. They told me it was education and welfare, looking after the players in their life off the field, helping them out, all that sort of stuff. And I sort of said, well, I've never done any of that, why are you ringing me? And they said, well, because you studied as a player, you did it, you lived it, and you breathed it, so you'd have credibility when talking to the other boys. We can't just get anyone, because if the boys go, well, did you do it when you were playing? And if you didn't, and then that doesn't hold up, So I studied. I was actually studying to be an architect, and I did 4 years. So I finished. I did a diploma of architectural technology, and I was going to move into like the building industry and do a bit of drawing here and there. So I finished that when I was playing. So I think when they saw me doing that, I went out and did it on my own. They sort of just thought, well, this guy sees the importance of doing something off the field and getting that balance. And it worked for me as a player, and try and share it with the other boys.
Tell us about your involvement in the NRL in relation to working with the Pacific players.
Education and Welfare works with all the players across the game, so all the NRL boys, their life off the field. We've got a whole heap of guys that are at uni, at TAFE, a whole heap that are that are setting up businesses, buying cafes, you know, all that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
And then outside of, I guess, that general stuff, I do a whole heap with the Pacific boys. Pacific program. We've never had it before because I've never had any Islanders in here before, you know. So, so when I got here, I said, "Oh, listen, you need to do this, this, this." So I set up basically the whole, all of the Pacific programs that we've got in our at the moment. And
what are some of those programs?
Well, I just based it all, as you know, with our people.
Yeah.
We go on all different tangents and we go all over the place, but there's a sort of common philosophy that keeps everyone together, you know, which is our culture.
Yeah.
So for me, I try to all my programs are based around cultural empowerment, and just getting our boys to understand the importance of their culture, their own identity. We got guys, you know, there's guys that are brought up here in Australia, brought up in New Zealand, that haven't been to the islands.
Yeah.
You know, brought up in the country, brought up in Queensland, all over the place. There's guys that have come over from New Zealand when they were little. So we've got a mix of all different types of players, and the first thing that I wanted to do was to get the boys to learn about themselves.
Yeah.
And once they were comfortable in themselves, and then they can help others, you know. So a lot of the stuff I was doing in the early stages, I guess, was around cultural empowerment, around understanding your identity, where we come from, language, song, all that sort of stuff.
And how
we did language classes with everything.
Yeah. Oh, fantastic.
Yeah. So we had Tongan classes, Māori classes, Samoan classes. I'd organise tutors to come in and work with the boys after training. We've done Pacific exhibitions. We've done a whole heap of stuff, and it's all about the boys understanding more about their culture. Yeah. And then so that they can share.
What are some of the main issues that particularly relate to Pacific players?
One of the big areas I think is connection to their culture, or probably more so disconnection. And it's just working out where, because all of our players are proud. Yeah. You know, I'd say every player in the comp now has got a tattoo, right? Because they're all proud, you know. Yeah. But it's how do you retain your cultural identity in this environment, in this Western world, you know, in this world that sort of says, you know, you got to live a certain way. Yeah, but you know, I want to send money back to the islands, or I want to go to a funeral. When are you coming back? I don't know. I'll come back when I come back. You know, so we have that Pacific culture where it's like, if I don't do that, I'm not an islander. I'm not a Polynesian, or I'm not from the Pacific. But if I do that, that's going to compromise my training or my games or the club or the contract. You know, so there's always that balance in finding out who do you stay true to. Yeah. And one of the areas that we've been working on over the last few years is me educating the game and understanding Pacific culture, so the game can allow you the freedom to be yourself, but at the same time it doesn't compromise the environment you're in.
Outside of the NRL, how else do you connect with your culture and community?
We're doing a lot of work with ANU, the National University in Canberra. They're the only uni in the country that run the Pacific Studies program. Okay. So I've been doing a lot of work with them, and we've done leadership camps. We've actually been asked. I actually had to present overseas. Got asked to present at this conference in New York, a sports one, about the cultural programs that we're doing in our game. It's pretty special because, you know, the NFL, they got a lot of they got a lot of Pacific players coming through, and they just wanted to know about what we were doing down there. So I went and presented to them, and they had all the top sports were over there, the baseball and the hockey and all that sort of stuff. So it's pretty interesting. And we just got asked back, or me and the lady from ANU. Got asked back to go to some of the colleges over there, UCLA and USC. Good. So we're going to head back over there at the end of the year and try and help them out.
Any inspiring words for our young Pacific youth?
Start your journey. You know, it doesn't matter where you are. The first thing I say to our guys is to start your journey, learn about yourself. Ask mum and dad where you come from. Ask mum and dad how they grew up. Ask your grandparents, your uncles and aunties. There's a whole heap of knowledge there that you'll see every day that you don't think. We don't have to go to libraries to learn about ourselves, you know. Just go to dinner, you know. And like I'm writing down a whole heap of stuff about my dad that I never knew, you know. So it's never too late to start your journey. My dad started school at 7, got kicked out at 9. I'm going, what? You know, but you know, and then he gets a bit better. So, but it's like, you know, our elders hold so much knowledge for us, and over here, especially because we're away from the islands, you know, it's very hard to get when they pass. So, you know, spend some time with them.